This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah, are you able to see my screen now?
Yes, we are able to see.
All right. And another important point, whatever the documentation that I'm sharing, right, it is a bit confidential. Do not share it with anyone. Use it for your personal reference, as it has some client IDs and company logos on it. I have prepared this document when I worked in TCS. So I have a few documents which will clearly explain about the performance engineering introduction, about the performance engineering foundation or the performance roadmap, and the engineering life cycle, and most importantly the process. Okay, so it is not a standard process. We always follow a process that we always follow a process depending upon various business requirements and various business demands that we have from different customers, stakeholders, and from a business perspective, it is not always a standard. It always depends on what type of testing that you're performing. It depends upon your key performance indicators, what are your SLAs, and what are your goals and objectives especially. So based upon what SLAs you have and what service statement of works you have, depending upon that, you will prepare your own non-functional test plan, the strategy about what to do and how to do it. So you keep doing it until and unless you meet something called SLAs again, which is called client requirements. Okay. So again, you continuously don't keep doing that. You have some timeline for that, something called estimation. So when you yourself calling as a performance testing engineer or performance engineer, senior performance test engineer, performance architect, performance test lead. So when you have some 5+ years of experience, you will be working as an individual contributor mostly, which includes a team member role, team leader role, and a single point of contact role who will talk, discuss, understand all the full life cycle implementation, and you will execute plan, you will publish the result, and you explain all the tasks or accomplishments that you have in the performance testing project to the customer. Okay, I mean, you will make him understand what exactly happened and how the performance has been improved. So what changed with what? This is the main challenge of every performance engineer. Okay, so the first point, before going to the performance introduction, performance engineering introductions in common performance issues, right? The first thing I wanted to know is, let's make this session interactive, as I told you earlier, because if you have some more questions, people will understand, and you'll also get some good understanding on what I'm explaining. So the first point is, how do you get the requirements? The first question. Anyone?
Yeah, you have technical specifications, any user stories, and also you will be interacting with different tech folks, right? Like architects, tech leads, QA managers, QA leads, those kind of folks you will be interacting. And
Okay.
besides, you have the documentation also, like I just mentioned. So going through that and also understand the entire landscape of the application, including the architecture and
Okay.
how the application has been, is communicating through protocol, whatever it is. So you need to understand that and interact with them and prepare your strategy and put it to the test plan.
All right. So let me give you one case here. So thanks for your answer. So the first case is, you the customer knows something about performance testing. He's aware of, he's some kind of a technical guy, so he is giving you something called SLA. Okay, these are called service level agreements or statement of work, or BVMs, business volume metrics, and also called KPIs, key performance indicators, which are also called non-functional requirements. The first thing is, you directly get saying that you directly get a requirement saying that our response time should not be more than 3.5 seconds when you test with 20,000 users. Okay, likewise, you get all the infrastructure details, you will get all the web server, app server, database server details, what are all the other things that you need to monitor, everything you'll get. Now I'm talking about the second case. The second case is, client doesn't know anything about performance testing. you are hired, and it is you who has to do everything right from the scratch till the sign off. The first phase of the project is something called non-functional requirement gathering. Forget about functional test cases for now. So there is something called non-functional requirement gathering. The client doesn't know anything about performance testing. What is your approach now? How do you get all the non-functional requirement gathering?
Well,
Uh,
go ahead. Sorry,
Yeah,
okay.
please.
if someone is talking.
Yeah, last time when I was working in a project there, we were using Adobe Analytics. Through there, we can see the volume going in the production for that particular application, and we can figure out what are the key flow that are being used most of the time. So we can come up with that, like these are the key flows where most of the traffic is going. That is the one. And other than that, we can check with the business analyst what are the
Mhm.
main flows, key flows are there, which are being used most of the time for that particular application. So we can come up with that, and we can identify these are the flows which are important.
Okay. Okay, you're right. Any other answers? Yes, to some extent, the way we workload model, we plan a workload model, and we prepare a workload model depending on what inputs. I mean, talking to different teams, we get so many inputs, and accordingly we'll prepare a plan. Okay. Yeah. Any other answers for that?
For my project,
Client people
No,
and
hang on for a moment. I'm sorry. Can all of you mute your lines? Someone is talking. Please mute your line so that no one will have a disturbance. Yeah, someone is talking. Please go ahead.
yeah, okay, sir. This is Sandhya. So we can
Yes.
check with the client and we can get the information and what time, I mean, the load is happening to their application, peak load, and what is the regular times, and if any Black Friday that time, so how the load is, how many requests are coming. So we can sit with them and we can get that info, and based on that we can design the workload.
Okay. Right. So, but you have so many things in non-functional requirements, right? How do you get that? My question is, you have plenty of.
Yeah, what is like this is Chelua here. So regarding initially when we are progressing with the performance systems where the client doesn't have any knowledge on those things, so we'll try to get some like discussion with them, like some performance questionnaires, like where we can understand like what is the application. So it is a banking domain or something. All kinds of questions we need to ask them and try to understand initially. So based upon the performance questionnaire, we will try to arrive at a few basic needs of the performance testing. Based on that, we will try to build additional things like environment and everything. So initially, like, we need to understand what extent we need to like test, what are the testing levels involved. So all these aspects will come. So we will try to initially build the performance questionnaire to understand, to take into the next steps. Then we will have continuous discussions to arrive at a particular SLA, or we need to benchmark the application so that that can be agreed by the client and everyone, so that we can proceed with the performance testing.
Right. Perfect. Very good. Thank you. So yeah, thanks all for your answers. So yeah, you might have you might have so many answers depending upon your own experiences. Is whatever someone has explained me just now. To most of the times we do that. We talk to number of people. I mean, to not number of people. We talk to everyone who is sitting across the project. Okay. So we get all the possible information from various teams who are, I mean, from the business, from the technology side, everything. So, but before that, when you don't have anything, any requirement from your customer, when you don't have anything, when you are not sure about how to baseline and benchmark, the first thing that you have to do is you need to have a feasibility study on your application or the product. You need to understand what is the application is all about, what different functionalities you have, how many user roles you have, and you need to understand the high prioritized functionalities. Let's say that if you see, for example, if you take a Gmail application, or if you take any of your company portal application where you test your payslip or IT declaration, how many number of users typically in a day will click on can't access my account, right? That is a very low prioritized functionality, a very low prioritized hit on a application. So if you think that how many people will access this application called leave portal or appraisal portal. So generally everyone will access it, but when you high clickers or when you get some ratings, you will see high number of users accessing that application, and some at times you will not be able to use that in-house applications in your own company because it has a very limited software hardware configurations with respect to infrastructures. Got it? So in such cases, the first point is you need to have a complete understanding on your application. What is it all about? The second point is it already performance tested? Okay, if it is tested, when it is tested, and you need to understand if it has some major changes with respect to the release or what hot fixes or what updates that has happened since last 4 months or 5 months. And you also need to understand, is the application that is being tested, are you doing it for the first time, or it has been already done? If it is done, when it is done. Okay, and most importantly, you need to understand from how many days the application is there in production. Okay, so to understand all these areas, again, you don't convince the client. No, you don't you, you don't force the client, but you don't convince the client. Instead, you make the customer to understand what can be your approach and process when you start performance testing and engineering for a project right from the scratch. Okay, now there is one document which is called non-functional requirement gathering and also called client questionnaire document. Okay, this is the first phase of performance testing and engineering. This is where you define all the requirements. All right, my system is slow, I'm sorry for that. Okay, so the first phase of any performance testing life cycle and engineering life cycle is this document. A performance engineer has to have the complete understanding on all the different areas before he starts performance testing on that application. And there is something called non-functional requirement gathering document or client questionnaire document, where it has some n number of questions. You will prepare the document putting all these questions in a consolidated sheet, and you send it across to all the different teams we have in the project, whosoever is involved, from DBAs, from WebLogic admins, App Server admins, web server admins, and the people who are working on databases side, the network team, application team, business team. And you will send all this document to get all the answers before you plan, before you prepare a strategy for your performance testing. Okay, the first thing is the general information. In this, you will ask what is the main don't worry about all these things, I'll share you this document. Okay, the first thing is you can go through these documents, you can go through all these points from these documents. So from the general information, what you do is you will understand, you'll ask them what is the main purpose of testing the application. Okay, is it the pre-production release, or you have already in production and there is a major update on that, you are testing that, or you are testing because some database has been changed, or some schema changes or execution plan changes on the database has been changed. So you'll have multiple requirements on that. You are here, the reason for asking this question is you are understanding the purpose of doing performance testing. So is it a minor upgrade or major upgrade, or on the entire infrastructure, or from the application, or from the network, or are we focusing on only the database? So that is why the reason you're asking this question. So you're asking where you're performing this testing. The reason you are asking this question is You have multiple environments. Some people do performance testing on shared environments, okay, where the development manual testing and performance testing happens because of budget issues. And some people have a mirror image of exact production environment, and some people do it on the staging environment. So it is always a best practice to do performance testing on the mirror image of prod size environment, prod like environment. That is a good practice. You're asking what are the different types of testings that you have to do, the flavors of testing: load testing, stress testing, endurance, scalability, reliability, resilience, and
Okay, sir.
most of the times, yes, please.
I have one question here
Yeah.
regarding the environment. So when we
Mhm.
don't have similar kind of production, like how do we evaluate in the final result? So where we see that production is having a higher version, and we are having in pre-prod, so we don't have like-to-like configurations, whether it might be OS versions, or it might be CPU or anything. So in that case, how do we evaluate and come into conclusion that this particular load will work better way in the production like that?
See, it is very simple because considering production environment, right? The first point, if the production is having 80,000 users of maximum handling capacity, okay, you cannot test with 80,000 users because it is associated with the cost and licensing of any tool. First point. Second point is, what are the versions, what are the main performance issues that you always see in production? Okay, you get, every time you get feedback from the users, accordingly you plan your test and you do the same kind of testing to see what is happening on the environment that you're testing, if it is a staging environment or a testing environment or a production environment. Okay, but when you test on this environment, the prod like environment, you may not see what are the issues that you are getting in production, because production is a real-time traffic. So
And it will be
for
running multiple applications and other things
right
in the
right
backend. Yeah.
right. So whatever the configurations that we have, what are there will be few dependencies in the production again. And I mean, there are few authentications which are not, which we don't have exactly in the test environment again. So every time when we test on testing environment, it is always when it is a capacity with huge load, you always test with 1/4 of the prod like size. That's all. If it is the maximum handling capacity of an application is 1,000 users. For example, we have tested IRCTC the first generation when I was in TCS for some 6 years ago. But during that time, you cannot simulate whatever the bottlenecks that you're seeing. I mean, currently, like you tend to see something like the payment is under process. Please do not click on back or refresh button. You don't see that in test environment. There is no simulation as such, like the money getting deducted from your account and the ticket is not getting generated. But we are improving the areas mainly about the application availability, the infrastructure availability, uh, and infrastructure availability and the type of we always try to optimize the database or the efficient, efficient code that has been written or properly configured machines. This is what are the main areas that we focus. Okay, and we will not have a complete control on what is the type of browser that you're using, what is the client configuration, you being physically seated in front of a laptop and trying to access, and what is the bandwidth that you're using, and what is the location from where you're accessing. We can't control all of them. But when we are testing on a production environment, now currently there are two scenarios here. We are testing on production environment now. Okay, we have access and our customer wants us to test everything on production. Even if the production is 100% down, he's okay with it, but he wants us to test only on production, that too on the weekends. We will not touch our application on any of the weekday. We don't want to interrupt the availability. We will test it only on the weekends, especially on Sunday night. Okay, one moment, please. One moment. I did not connect my charger. Okay, thank you. Sorry for that. So that's what, when you test on any environment, you need to define the SLA's goals and objectives in order to achieve, whatever your target is. Okay, so you can test it on any environment, but again, if the customer wants us to test for 1 lakh users, okay, it doesn't have any budget to spend and to create an environment for 1 lakh users, because environment is always very expensive with respect to hardware and software. So he created 1/4 size or 1/3 size of prod lake environment. You will test with 1/4 size of 1 lakh users is 25,000 users, right? So you test it with 25,000 users and you publish the result. And whatever the assumptions that you create, okay, whatever the results that you get for 25,000 users in your testing environment, and when you publish it, you cannot directly jump onto a conclusion. This will happen when you test it with 1 lakh users by just multiplying 25,000 users results multiplied by 4. You cannot do that. You understood my point, right? I'm testing with 25,000 users where my customer requirement is 1 lakh users in a production. When I test with 25,000 users, I publish a report along with my suggestions and recommendations, right? So can I directly say to my customer that this is what will happen when you test with 1 lakh users by multiplying the results whatever I got for 25,000 users? Can I multiply by 4 and can I publish the result?
So
No, it's
that
not the
question,
realistic.
RK, it seems your question. Let's say you have 4 servers in the production, you have 8 servers.
Mhm.
Okay, when it says that 25%, it's going to be 2 servers versus 8 servers or something. So you are just testing against only the 2 servers with 25K, whatever it is. Then you are saying, okay, can you make it 80K or something, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So 100% that will not be the possible because there are many things that comes into picture, right? So underlying things, it could be the architecture. There are many things you need to look into that, including the network bandwidth also. So
Right.
I don't think that is the we can go with okay, you should be good if you multiply with 4 times, then you are good with 80K. That will not be the feasible answer, I guess.
Right, you're right. So any other answers? You can you can come up with your own answers. That's fine. So do you think that can I multiply all the results that whatever the results I got for 25,000 users, can I multiply that values by 4 and say can I say to my customer that this is what is the performance for 1 lakh users if we test?
No, it is not the right way. We need to understand how based upon some calculations we need to arrive. So that thing we need to understand different servers will be having different number of cores or something like that. So each and everything we need to consider, and we need to do some calculations. So based on that we can give some recommendations with respect to saying that these are the risks involved because we are executed the test with scaled down environment. So all this conclusion needs to be given. So based upon some calculations.
Okay, you're right. That's what. So we cannot control. We cannot say that this is what will happen when we test with so and so users. The reason is because when you say vUser, okay, vUser is nothing but virtual user, okay, which is not really existing. He will simulate. He'll replace a human user, and he will show that like if a real user is doing some activity, what will happen? That is what is going to happen. Even from the tool side, if you're testing with 1,000 users or 50 users, it doesn't mean that all the 50 users will be opening the Google Chrome browser and typing the URL and invoking the application. That will not happen. It just sends a simple HTTP request, which is simulating the real user behavior. It is not that if I do something manually by opening a Chrome browser, I type in username and password, then I access my application. If when you test with 50 users, all the 50 users from the tool doesn't open this this Google Chrome or Firefox or IE. The reason is because it will have too much of memory eating, which will create a bottleneck at the very initial stage. So what you have to understand here is whatever you are doing in performance testing is you're doing it virtually, which is not really existing, and that is just a simulation part. So when you create environment or when you do all these activities, if you remember, if I explained you in the last class, you need to have detailed understanding, the basic understanding of the memory footprints of how much each user will consume some memory from the load runner or JMeter. If I am using a HTTP protocol, the footprint for one user is different. If I am using an SAP protocol, the footprint for one user is different, memory footprint. There are footprints for CPU, memory, and disk and network. So when you're testing with one user with any protocol, the footprint will definitely vary. For example, if you take Ajax TrueClient protocol, if you're testing 600 users with Ajax TrueClient, there is no concept of correlation in that, TrueClient protocol. Earlier it was called a Tuxedo. So when you test with that, for 600 users load test, you need 6 load generators with very high configurations, because it will have so much of memory footprint. So before you ask these questions or before you try to create your own environment, when you want to set up some environment for your own load testing purposes, you need to have basics of memory, CPU, memory footprints, disk and network. The first thing that you have to do is you learn the basics of all these resource utilization tasks. You remember I also told you one point, right? Every time you see some high CPU or high memory, you cannot directly go and add one memory slot to the existing slots, and you cannot directly add one CPU core to the additional CPUs. It will not improve the performance. It is not a fix. It is not the only solution. It will increase the throughput instead of response times. When you have additional slots, it will have more number of processing cycles, it will occupy more amount of memory, and it will result in giving more throughput. It will not improve the performance. Improving the performance involves in lot many activities. Okay, we are going out of the topic. Let's stick to the topic for now. We'll talk, and we'll ask the flavors of tests that has to be performed and the levels of testing. And always the most important aspect of any performance testing project is you need to have continuous monitoring. Performance testing would not be sufficient if you don't have an proper APM solution in place. You need to have a very efficient APM solution like Dynatrace or New Relic or AppDynamics or New Relic. You need to have that solution. You need to continuously monitor your application, and you need to understand what is happening. Because that is what you're finally publishing and reporting to your stakeholders. The reason you are asking this question is because if you don't have a continuous monitoring solution, if you don't have an efficient monitoring tool, how do you know what bottlenecks you have? How do you know that what abnormalities you have in your tests, right? So that is why the reason you need to make your customer to understand, for our requirement I think this is the good APM like Dynatrace or AppDynamics will help our tool to monitor or to identify or to eliminate the bottlenecks at the very early stage. You should be in a position to address or to explain your customer what is the best tool in the market, and you need to have that solution. Okay, so the planned rollouts, you'll ask the schedules, the pilot rollout and production rollout. You will ask the approximate timeline. If you're working as a lead, depending upon the headcount, the number of senior resources, junior resources, and working manpower, you will define the estimation plan. And you will also ask if the customer wants us to test something like break-even testing or a stress testing or a failure testing. We'll ask all the list, and we'll ask the duration for how long do I need to run the test, what can be the steady state. Okay, so can you tell me what is reliability? A simple question. I just wanted to make you interactive. So if I'm doing a reliability testing, why I do it, and for how long do I need to run it? Anyone? Or can you tell me what is reliability at least?
Endurance testing you're talking about?
Endurance testing, I run it for hours just to understand if I have some memory leaks. So endurance is different from reliability.
So reliability means it is to check the reliability of the softwares that is performing for the prolonged period of time.
Right. If it is for the first time, or if you want that new software that has been installed on the environment, a new version of a software that has been installed on the environment, you want to check that. A simple word is something which we can trust on. Okay, reliable. How reliable is that? You have a new version, you have a new product, you have a new fix, hot fix, upgrade on the environment. You want to test it for the first time. That is the first point. Someone just explained me now, answered me now. If you want to test it, if you run it for a prolonged period of time, that is reliability. Okay. So every time, if they come, if yes, please.
It's a smoke test only.
No. Smoke testing is different again. Smoke test you just run less than 30 minutes, 15 to 30 minutes. So something like a pilot run. So you will identify you will ask the number of scenarios. Again, it is again you who has to define the complexity of all the scenarios. You need to prioritize all of them, like simple scripts, moderate scripts, medium, high, and very complex. Okay, 20 greater than. I'm not talking about steps here. I'm talking about the transactions. If it is only having 4 to 8 transactions, the reason why I have written steps is steps here is because some people consider login transaction as you open the browser, type in the URL, hit enter, then you type in the username, then password, then you click on login. That is, for most of the people, it is login. But some clients, BFSI clients, the first transaction is invoking a home page. That invoking a home page is nothing but I open my browser, I type in ICICI.com, I hit enter. That is my first transaction. Because when I typed in my URL, when I hit enter, how long does it take to load my home page? That is my first transaction. The second transaction is I type in my username, then password, then login. That is the original login transaction. Got it? So that is why the reason I have written steps here. Transactions, depending upon the requirements, they define their own transactions and how many steps are included in their transactions. Okay, so that is the general information that you asked.
Reliability testing, so at what stage we can go for it? Sorry.
Let's say that let's say that if I have my customer is saying that there is a new feature that came up. Okay, there is a new feature that has been added. We want to test it for 8 hours because it can go down any point of time. We are giving a trial. We are trying to understand if that is working fine as expected, or incorporating that new change into the existing application, is that really creating a problem to other existing functionalities which are already working fine. You understood the point here? So like you do regression and retesting, you do first round of functional testing, you get some error, you get some bug, someone fixes it, you retest it, that will work fine. Okay, but why are you doing regression here? The reason is because when you have a particular fix, okay, which is not working fine earlier, when you fixed it, when you're trying to retest it, the reason for doing regression is because whether the fixed defect is really showing some bad impact on the other existing functionalities which are already working fine or not. In the same way, when you are incorporating some new feature into the application, when you are load testing, when you added this new transaction, the new feature, it may give some bad performance, bad performance impact on the other existing transactions, which are already giving less than 2 seconds of response times earlier. After incorporating this particular new feature, it can give some, it can result some high response times to other transactions, or the same functionality which has been incorporated, it can give the high response times of 5 to 6 seconds. That is why the reason we monitor it, we test it for a prolonged period of time. In such cases, we go to reliability testing. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So so this is the most important topic, setting up the test environment. Most of the BFSI domains, financial companies, HSBC or Bank of America, JPMC, Wells Fargo, you'll not be allowed to touch any of the components in the environment. A dedicated team, tools team or the environment team will take care of setting up the environment. Okay. But before someone sets up the environment, or if you yourself creating the environment, setting up the environment, it is your responsibility to get all the information from all the different teams. So you're asking like, are you creating a setup, the mirror image of the same prod size, prod like setup? Okay. And you ask how many tires does your application have? Tires is nothing but if you have one web, one app, and one DB server, it is called 3-tier architecture. Got it? And some architectures will have web applications. You will have a infrastructures like where you have web application server in one single box, like Apache Tomcat, and you have one database server like MySQL. That is called 2-tier architecture. But most of the applications, you will have n number of web servers, app servers, and database servers. It is called entire architecture. This is what you are asking here. How many tiers does your application have? Okay, what are the different types of operating systems that you're using? Okay, what are the client side that I have to take care of? Is it a VB version or the JavaScript? There are few versions. I'll send this document to you. You can go through that. If there is anything in specific that I have to take care from the client side, please let me know what and all I have to look at. Is it, do I need to check for browser metrics, browser performance, or JavaScript, or page load time? You will ask all of that, and you'll ask what are the browsers that you want us to test. So he says that my application has to work on IE all versions. Okay, IE 7, 8, 9, 10, and he say that it has to work for Safari, Chrome, Firefox, and that's all. We can give a big list, but for now you are testing it only on browser or mostly IE because of security issues. You will ask him to provide the architecture diagram, application flows, transaction traversals, the number of user roles, the high prioritized functionalities, and you also try to understand what are all the proxy firewalls existing between these applications, the complete use case traversal diagram, where you start and how do you get a response time, what is the round trip time, and you also ask that what are all the different locations that we have to test. Okay, the simulations, the reason is because if you have 5 to 6 load generators, if you have 1,000 users that you are testing, out of 1,000 users, some 200 users are from Russia, 120 users are from USA, 300 users are from Paris. You'll have such distributions. Depending upon the timings, the accessing on the application, the peak usages will differ, right? So that is why the reason to test it from multiple reasons. If it is a application that is globally accessed, you'll try to understand from how many locations and what timings it will be accessed. When you talk about hardware and software, what is the web server that you will ask, what is the web server that you're using, app server and memory server, sorry, database server. From all of the servers, you will ask all these details. How many processors you have, what is the clock speed, number of processors, number of cores, number of memory slots. Even if you talk about memory, the memory also has some speed. Okay, there is something called MBBS. Even if you look at the memory slot, you must be aware, right? A minute. go to the memory. This memory has got, I have only one slot, okay? I have one of two, you can have two slots. I have one slot for now. And the speed of the memory is 1600 megahertz. If you take gaming laptops, this is i3, I have another laptop like i7, so that is 2400 megahertz. If I am putting 1600 megahertz in first slot and 2000 megahertz in the second slot, the performance of my laptop will definitely degrade. Both the memory slots will not run in the same speed. Okay, so you need to understand that basics. That is why the reason you are asking the memory slots, the speed of the memory, number of disks, the capacities, load balancers, what is the load balancer that we are using, how it is load balanced. And you also ask about the software of on all the servers. What is the SSL version of, you must be aware of the SSL version, right? SSL handshake, security socket layer. Whatever the data that you send to the servers, right, it will be encrypted by using a software called security socket layer. The data will be encrypted and it will be sent to the server and you get the response. And you will have different versions of SSL certificates. You must be also having an idea about website socket option, right? You give an SSL version to establish the handshake, the connection establishment between the load runner and the application that you are trying to record. So you try to understand that SSL certificates, configuration settings, the OS that it has, and the majority of the web application servers and database servers sits on different flavors of Linux. It can sit on Red Hat or Ubuntu or CentOS. Okay, very rarely some 15 to 20% of the application sits on Windows versions. Okay, you are asking the versions here of all the web app DB servers. So what is the software running on this tier, and the network type you are asking to, we're trying to get all these details from the network side, the protocols that are involved in communicating, in establishing the connections across the different servers that we have, the network, the maximum network bandwidth that our application can accommodate. So yeah, now after discussing all these points, if you look at this part, what is the task distribution, how do you create, it is all about how do you create a workload model. You can get a workload model from directly from the client. The second point is, someone explained me just half an hour back. You will talk, you will there is production, there are few production tools. Okay, if you want to understand the workload model, we used a tool called Client Finder. You can install that in the production. Okay, what it will do for you is, it will record all the traffic, it will record all your hits for a 24 hours of duration, and it will finally give you a report, how many hits, how many requests that we had on every individual transaction or for every functionality across the application. So it will give you a detailed report. Based on that, you create your workload model. It is a very simple task, but your client has to effort some money on some tools that you install on your production go live environment. That is, or you have some Little's law, right? Some Little's law, and there are some techniques for creating an efficient workload model. So if you have, yeah.
Any tool you can specify, at least we can mention.
That is like I have. I mean, there is that. I don't know. I mean, if it is available for all the people, that is a Client Finder. That is a yeah. At times when I was working for Franklin Templeton, that financial institution is using this tool called Client Finder. It is a very expensive tool. I don't think so all the people will be using this tool. What it will do is, it will exactly capture all the hits, all the requests that are coming to the application. Finally, it will give you can create a report per hourly, for every 6 hours, for every 30 minutes, and you can create a consolidated report. Depending on that report, you create a workload model. Else, the second case is, There is something called Little's law. The third case is if you have an application already that is tested for the last time, you can take the production logs. Okay, there is something called production traffic analysis. Is nothing but you can use some tools. You're understanding the traffic on your production site. Okay, you can also understand. You need not install tools actually. You can also you'll understand directly on a day like Black Friday. Black Friday, a vendor like Amazon, who is the #1 vendor for cloud, uh, which he himself calls as an availability leader, he cannot give the availability of that instance for more than 1 hour or 2 hours. But on a Black Friday, most of the locations, Amazon will not work more than 2 to 3 hours in a 24 hours time frame. Okay, that is why the reason performance is always expensive. So it doesn't matter that you are using a very efficient system or Azure or cloud, Azure cloud or AWS. It doesn't matter with what type of cloud that you're using to increase your availability or to increase your sustainability. If there is something like user base, if there is a situation where it is creating a lot of concurrency, the application will definitely go down. Okay, so if it is exceeding the anticipated load, okay, anticipated capacity, so that is how you define the workload here. So what all you also need to understand the profiles, the transactions, the accepted performance time less than what is the response times, what is the throughput, what is the CPU utilizations. So what are the again this is one important question: how many number of users I have to test? What is the maximum currency in that? Okay. So what is the timeline? How frequently I have to test? On what environments I have? Is it for every release, or is it for every sprint, or is it for every upgrade or every hotfix that is there every time, or is it every quarter? So you need to understand the timeline. Accordingly, you need to keep doing all those things. Okay. So this is the document that that gives you the entire information of what you have to do. Okay, what you have to ask before you start a performance testing project. Okay, and when we talk about roles and responsibilities, after you get all these questions answered, this is where you create then you send all this, you prepare a plan or you prepare a strategy, you prepare a workload model and you send it to the customer, and you need to get the sign off. That is nothing but getting an approval from the customer whether you can go ahead with the plan or not for the performance testing. Okay, this is the first document which will give you the complete information, which will help you to plan, which will help you to strategize, which will help you to avoid the misguided approach. After working for 3 or 4 weeks and you realize that whatever I'm doing is wrong. Okay, it will waste your time, it will waste your effort, and you might that can put you into some red escalations. Okay, so you need to follow the guided standard approach. You need to have some process, you need to follow that. Okay, you need to be very careful when you say your customer that this is what we are going to achieve, because you cannot predict, you cannot give the result. Okay, you cannot say that I can do this for you, right? You never know. That is why the reason, don't be a false promise, don't give a blind commitment, have a feasibility study on the requirements, make sure about what is happening, talk to various teams, you stick on that, send the same to the client, always touch base with the customer and other teams, and take the approval from the client to avoid further escalations. Got it? So when we talk about roles and responsibilities, I don't say that these are the roles and responsibilities for 1 year experienced, or these are all the roles and responsibilities for a performance architect or an SME. Now, performance testing with engineering scope is very, very wide, very wide. Now they came to Dockerized environment. Now they are bringing everything to containerized environments. Everything is managed in a microservices architecture. Now every job description is expecting every performance engineer to have handful experience in Java with 40% of database concepts, right from the basics. Okay. Now majority of the product based companies and services based companies who are following the emerging trends in performance testing areas are now adopting the DevOps model. I mean, again, Agile is also a practice of practice in that Agile performance testing. When you talk about all these things, they follow a CI/CD pipeline. Okay, they are asking for one commercial tool like LoadRunner with 4 protocols. It can be a minimum of Ajax, TrueClient, Web HTTP, HTML, mobile, and anything from SAP or ODBC or click and script protocol, anyone, some mainframe RTE application. Okay. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. The recent trend is recording the streaming applications. If you want to record a scenario like, okay, I have posted one of my class video in a portal, okay, like vimeo.com. I uploaded my video in YouTube. So I have enough bandwidth, I have enough configurations. Can you tell me how long does it take to buffer my video? You have to record that, you have to check the performance for that, and you need to publish the result. The first thing is mobile, the second thing is Web HTTP HTML, third thing is TrueClient, the fourth thing is SAP applications. For that, if you have such big scope from a performance testing standpoint of view, there is no choice other than LoadRunner. No other tool can do or perform better other than like LoadRunner. JMeter, and again, people who just want to see how my application is performing, they want to use JMeter. Okay, you need to have. There is no again. There is nothing like top 5 performance testing tools, top 3 application monitoring tools. There is nothing as such. Depending upon your requirements, depending upon your own goals, your tech stack that you're using in your applications, you choose your tools depending upon your budget and you publish the results. Okay, one LoadRunner with JMeter and engineering, Java hands-on experience, and for a client side you need JavaScript, or if it is very good if you have Ruby on Rails or Python. Okay, these are all the various trends that are being followed from every performance projects. So there is no specific roles and responsibilities. The final point on this topic is you are a one-man hero who will take care of all the end-to-end activities. One-man technical associate who will plan everything, who will work on everything, who will understand everything. If required, you have to learn that skill in the next 2 weeks, and you have to onboard and you have to work on that. Got it? So the current application that I'm working completely works on data science, machine learning, performance testing, which completely sits on Kubernetes, managed by Red Hat OpenShift, a microservices based architecture, and Docker containerized environment. If you don't know anything about it, you have to be clear with your managers or technical people so that you will get an opportunity to learn. You can learn then and there. You can start working on it so that some new good skills you can acquire that. Okay. So we'll talk about some common performance issues. I'll talk about the process tomorrow. We'll talk about some common performance issues. Okay. The reason why I continuously talk about having some basic hands-on about Java or any other development language is because most of the performance issues that you see, right, that happens because of inefficient code. It's nothing but poorly written code. If you don't have experience on that, basic experience, or if you don't understand the basics of Java, at least 30 to 40% of Java hands-on, you'll not understand where the bottleneck is from. But the customer will always have an expectation, like my performance engineer will identify any kind of bottlenecks and he will give any kind of recommendation. Not only your customer or my customer, it's everyone's customer. every performance engineer's customer is under an assumption that if I have some issue from my application, my performance engineer is able to identify that and he can give me a recommendation. He can talk to the respective team. He can get that fixed for me. That is his assumption. Not assumption. He is on that decision. He decided that. If you cannot, if you don't have any experience on these things, right, you cannot use any profiling tools. You will not be able to read thread dumps. You cannot understand thread dump by simply reading it, a term called blocked thread, timed waiting. That is not that. If you want to read a thread dump or a heap, some kind of code snippets, you need to have some basic hands-on, because the primary bottleneck is the inefficient code. You will not be able to improve the performance if you don't understand where you have issues in the code. The reason, because poorly written code can lead a host, or poorly written code can bring any server, any machine of that web application, it can bring that down. Okay, because of including, you'll have some inefficient algorithms, you will seeing too many memory leaks, you will have so many application deadlocks because of using the very older versions of software, or if you are working on an integrated legacy system. When I say this word called integrated legacy system, there is an application that I'm currently supporting. It was an insurance application. Okay, it was initially started in the year 1998. Okay, there was some logic installed, there was some code snippet that has been planned, that is wrapped, and we are testing the same thing since last 98, 2018, 2020. From last 22 years, they are not changing anything from the code snippet side, except they're wrapping it up and they're doing some cosmetic changes with the name of something called fix or release. They're testing the same thing again and again. If that, the reason is, again, there is a strong reason for that. If that comes down, the entire revenue and the stock of that application will go down. The customers or the heads of that application do not want any of the technical associate to touch the legacy system. It is wrapped and it is locked. So you cannot improve performance on such applications. You can just test and publish the result. Even if you give a very strong recommendation, right, saying that you need to improve this, you need to bring this environment to microservices architecture. Even if you do that, no one will agree to that. If the system is down for 1 hour, it will affect the stock price of that vendor. That is that crucial. Okay, so I always this is the first point: poorly written code, older versions, application deadlocks, inefficient algorithms. It will bring your server down. So make sure all the teams, especially the performance testing team or performance group of performance testers, using all the tools efficiently. Okay, from automated tools like profilers to the best programming practices. That is why the reason you also need to ask the customer, saying that, did you include, okay, the code reviews, or are you implementing the best coding practices in our project? If it is yes, then you will not see these issues. Okay, best programming practices from the COE team and code reviews should be a practice in any performance testing project to avoid something like poorly written code bottlenecks. Okay, and the most common problem, this is the poorly written code. Then the second one is unoptimized databases. Okay, if your database is optimized from the DBA time to time, it will allows you the highest levels of security and performance. It will have that kind of impact on that. If you have an unoptimized database, right, it can destroy any application in production. No doubt about that. If your database is unoptimized, it is not touched, if nothing is tuned, if nothing is monitored, if you just leave it like that, it can destroy any production application. It can bring that down, which will impact the availability again. So there will be too many missing indexes. which will slow down the performance of SQL queries causing most of the bottlenecks, or which can drag the site, which can drag down the entire site. Okay, so that is one thing. So you need to make sure that you need to talk to your DBAs, and you need to make sure that your database is optimized. He need to make sure that there are few scripts that he need to use, or there are some file statistics that has to be checked for all the inefficient queries. Okay, so, and the third common performance issue is unmanaged growth of data. If you don't identify the growth of data that keeps on continuously increasing, okay, like for every quarter, okay, every quarter, every month, people increase on IRCTC. Okay, so if you take Paytm people will start, they keep on increasing because Paytm used everywhere. This after the digitalized evolution, right? So people started using Phone Pay or Amazon Pay, different wallets, because you have too many cashbacks, too many offers from the different vendors. So people are increasing day by day. The user growth is increasing. So if you don't identify the growth of data, right? Data systems tend to degrade over time. If you have the same infrastructure, I have 4 cores, 8 cores, I will maintain only this part. You will not have the availability of the application for the users. So for that, you need to continuously monitor your infrastructure. You need to continuously monitor the data growth. So for all the web performance success, the first success of any performance project, right? The first success of any performance project is to determine the accountable data growth. If you understand the data growth from your business side, you can manage everything from software sides, infrastructure size, the tools size, the tools. You can decide accordingly, and you can avoid all the. You can eliminate the bottlenecks from the very initial stage. And you also most of the times you also see the traffic spikes because of this growth. You see a sudden spike. The reason is because the user rate has been increased, the data growth has been increased, and if you have a poor load distribution, right? Poor load distribution, again, that will create a lot of problem. It can cause slow response times by incorrectly assigning new site visitors, or you will have a bogged down server. The reason is because if you have poor load distribution. Okay, the example of poor load distribution is if you don't distribute the load properly, right? What will happen is too many people will be on the same single server. If you have 3 servers in the application in your infrastructure, but not all the servers are if you don't use a proper load balancing algorithm, even the load balancer knows that the server 3 is handling less number of requests, so that I can redirect this particular request to that server. So if you have a poor load distribution, right? So what will happen is too many people will be accessing the same server, which again they'll bring that down. They'll not use the other 2 servers which are already available. So you need to take care of the load distribution. You have to correctly assign the new site visitors. You have to use the right algorithm. Okay, and I'll write here. So I'm discussing, right? So you will not. Okay. Inefficient code is the first point. Okay, or there's nothing but poorly written code. We discussed this. Okay. The second point is unoptimized databases, right? Okay, so managed growth of data and sudden traffic spikes. Okay, if you see any sudden spike, you need to understand why you got Okay, and the fifth one is poor load distribution. And default configurations. Every performance engineer has to understand the default configurations. Okay, if you don't understand these default configurations, okay, systems must be properly tuned, first point. Then so if you understand these default configurations, right, if you see any of the issue, you can directly go back and check whether that the configuration has been changed. Okay, this default configurations, it will make your work easy to get new components up and running. If something is installed or configured, you will easily understand. Okay, it is very important for all the web applications, especially in production environment. Okay, every setting should be checked. Simple point. Okay, like you need to check, for example, you need to review the thread counts, you need to check the allocated memory, you need to check the permissions, default permissions, and you need to, in the last, you need to confirm all the configuration parameters are suiting the demands placed of your web application. Okay, and you also need to have some understanding on the DNS, domain name server. There is something called CDN, right? Content Delivery Network. Yep, a CDN, and something like firewall and network connectivity. Okay, and you also need about your understand about the infrastructures, shared resources, or is it sitting on VMs? Okay, the reason is because VMs will have a lot of latency issues, so you need to check. Sometimes virtual systems are not properly organized. So the reason is because if my client will buy a simple ESX server for all the performance teams, okay, then he uh, break the ESX servers into bits and pieces. Okay, by just giving the RAM size and CPU, he can break that server into hundreds of VMs depending upon what configurations we have. Okay, so hundreds of VMs will sit on a single physical server. So you need to check where that server is hosted. If your server is hosted in Florida, from different countries, depending upon your bandwidth and their bandwidth, if it is again hosted in the cloud, you will definitely have latency issues, which will impact the response times. Okay, so you have some threading performance issues, memory performance issues, algorithmic performance issues. Okay, you have interface performance issues, client side. There are some miscellaneous. You have some. Have you anyone heard about fake performance issues? The last point. This is the last point I would like to tell you. This is called fake performance issues. Okay. You know what is that? Anyone have experience about fake performance issue?
I mean, it assumed to be the performance issue, but it may not be. I mean,
You're right. Yes, you're right. Perfect. Any other answer? Anything? So my application is down. What is the priority of that bottleneck? Is it a priority 1 or 2 or 3?
1.
Right? My disk, I got an alert saying that my disk is is running out of storage. Maybe in next 24 hours, it may be full. Is it P1 or P2 or P3?
Yeah,
Anyone?
we can say P2.
Yes. The reason is because it doesn't need immediate intervention.
Yeah, still I have time.
You have time. Okay. So if there is application not available, you have to step in then and there. You have to check what it is. You have to bring that up. So there are P3s. P3s are nothing but temporary network issues. You report to your customer saying that you have too much of latency. When he checks it, he'll not have that latency. Okay, at times, all of a sudden it comes and it automatically goes. That is a temporary network issue, which is a fake performance issue. Okay, there are few non-reproducible issues that are also called as fake performance issues, and you will have automatic software updates. In production, most of the times they disable it. If they, they manually do the updates. If they turn on these automatic updates, right, when it is updating, something will go down and it will restart. In that time, the application is not available. It can be for 2 minutes or 3 minutes. In that 3 minutes, his entire money will get deducted from his account and it will be returned back in 7 working days. If it is 1 lakh rupees which is being sent for a medical emergency, the customer will never ever use that bank. He is losing one valuable customer. That is how the business will go if the performance is bad. So that is all for today. We spoke about the performance engineering introduction, the roadmap, the roles and responsibilities, the common performance issues, and tomorrow we'll talk about the process. I'll tell you what is the process, performance engineering process. We will complete the section 1. We also talk about production traffic analysis. I'll send you some tools. Again, I want to repeat this point. Whatever the content we have, we are sticking to that content, and whatever the access or whatever the real-time scenarios that we give it to you, okay, the simulations are possible. When you test with 800 users, the bottlenecks that you see are different, but whatever the lab that we have, you may not see that exact issues, but however, we will help you with how to take the heap dumps, the configurations, what is a GC tuning, the performance impact of GC. So the reason, the common point that I have observed from every associate who is joining this class is, sir, I want real time. I want real time. So I want to know what exactly will happen in real time, what bottlenecks I see. So before you jump onto that, you need to learn a lot. I am creating a document called performance testing dictionary. In that, I will clearly write what is index, what is catching, what is catchy, what is SSL, what is CDN, what is a firewall, what is a network, what is HTTP, what is JavaScript, what is index, what is DB, what is execution plan. I will write clearly all these basics. And if you don't, without knowing all these basics, without knowing your understanding the roles or business requirements, don't be a internet blog reader. Do not give your answers. Okay, I have taken a heap dump by using kill-9 process ID I gave. I got my heap dump. It is not the answer. How do you analyze the heap dump? So if I ask now, these are the common performance issues. So if I ask someone that what are all the performance issues that you have in your that you saw in your last project, or tell me some critical bottlenecks that you have identified and what fixes you gave from your experience. Anyone in the team with 5+ years experienced or 4+? No,
Yes.
yes, yeah, I'm not actually, I don't want to, I'm not degrading here, but I want to make you to understand the standards of any expectation. Any expectation. If I ask you, this question is for everyone. What is the critical bottleneck that you identified? When I have unofficially taken, officially I have taken some 400 to 500+ interviews. Whatever was mentioned in the resume, I stick to that. Whatever the answer that you give, I ask the question from the same topic. If I ask you, what is the bottlenecks? Tell me 2 bottlenecks that you identified from the last project. What was your answer?
Memory leaks high CPU utilization.
Memory acceptation.
Okay, memory leaks, high CPU utilization, and
It's impacted on the response times too. So
that's fine. But what is the bottleneck execution? Memory leak is one bottleneck. Out of memory is one bottleneck. High CPU is one bottleneck. And any other bottlenecks?
Deadlock when we
Deadlock.
identified
Yes.
from thread
Application.
manager. Yeah.
Perfect. Application deadlocks. Anything else? We have 21 people, right?
network issues,
Network issues.
especially latency.
Latency.
And
You.
some
JDBC
update
pool
pipes are
percentage
very
size
high
getting
when we
increased,
prod.
as well as
Load balancer issues.
Load balancer issues. GC post
JDBC
time.
pool percentage size is getting,
Yes,
yeah,
JDBC pool
GC
size.
suspension time is getting,
GC
we are
post
getting
time.
spikes, and as well as we can see like, yeah,
Some long running query where
Long running query.
there were some missing indexes.
Long running queries. Okay, we'll stop here. Let me stop the recording. This is getting